Hi, and welcome to Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly show about finance, money, and investing. I'm your host, Ray Treverson from OTG Capital. This show is proudly sponsored by OTG Capital. We are a private credit investment trust, wholesale investment trust, ASIC registered, and that's the paid bit over and done with. We are a community service. We do education, and more education, not product plug. But the CRN tells me I need to let people know that we are sponsored. So that's the bit of regulatory bit out of the way. I'm really pleased to welcome to the microphone this week for the first time, Nathan Hood. He is a service person. I'll get Nathan to explain it a bit more, but Nathan is with the Australian Shareholders Association. Now, Nathan, I found out through Rachel Waterhouse, who was recently on the show, knows a lot about investing and using AI. And I thought it would be really, really good to have Nathan on the show to talk about his perspectives on AI and what it can and can't do. And I think first and foremost, Nathan, maybe give a bit of an intro to the audience about who you are, what you do, what your qualifications are, and all the good stuff.
Sure. Thanks, Ray. Thanks for having me on the show. My name's Nathan Hood, and I'm the membership officer here at the Australian Shareholders Association. Been here now for just under 12 months. But I was a member of the ASA before taking on the paid role. I started out in the ASA just as a member, attending member groups, and then I quickly became a convener of a group, and I now convene two groups. And so what that allows me to do is to talk to a lot of members on a pretty regular basis and hear about different things that are of interest to them at the moment. And certainly, probably the thing that's discussed the most in my member chats is AI at the moment. So it's a huge theme.
Yeah, it's one of those topics that you really just can't get away from. And given that my own background before I retrained and became a finance professional, I was in information tech, and I was part of the internet boom that occurred in the late 90s and early 2000s. I was part of a big internet company at that time, and they're still big today, Cisco. We were a software company. We got acquired by Cisco. And so in my late 30s, early 40s, I was part of this massive ramp up of interest on the internet. And I got to tell you, it was just life changing. It really was. And we were talking about lots and lots of money being spent at that time to tool up and build infrastructure for the internet. What's happening in AI, though, is another scale even bigger than what happened 25 years ago. And so, Nathan, it's hard to ignore, because the amount of infrastructure and money that is being spent in artificial intelligence really is quite mind-boggling, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I think there's a lot of parallels to what you probably experienced during that tech boom, I guess, what it was known as back then. But yeah, this is on another scale that we've never seen before. The rate at which some of these companies is growing is faster than any companies in history. And I mean, and you can see why. I mean, there's just so many applications that AI can address now that I think and that's what sort of probably came apparent to me very early on in using AI, was that it wasn't just about asking a simple prompt to the AI and then having it give me an answer. I realized that the limit was more so my ability to ask good questions really than the actual tool itself. So yeah, it's a fascinating time to be alive.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into specific AI engines today, because that can be 10 shows, let alone part of today. I mean, I've been recommended a whole bunch of different ones. I got one bundled into an Office suite that I subscribe to, one of the big majors out of the United States. There are lots of offers out there, but I don't want to go into that today. So I guess from your perspective, and because you get exposure to so many investors, both retail and wholesale, but primarily more retail, I believe, why has AI become relevant now to everyday investors in your mind?
Well, I think it's become relevant because suddenly they have a tool that often, the bigger players, I guess, have had access to. The big players have got, resources to do research that the little guys, like you and I don't have. But now AI kind of levels the playing field in many ways. And so, the volume of information that we can get through with AI as a tool, in terms of analyzing company announcements, annual reports, is phenomenal. And we can get through so much work now. And so that enables us then to make comparisons and to really scrutinize these reports in a much shorter period of time. And so that, I think, initially at least, is what the appeal is to a lot of the people that I'm speaking to, is that they have got this tool now to really help them with their research.
Yeah, I must say I've been away from the investor forums for quite a while. I've been focusing on my own professional work, and so I've been part of the North Shore investor groups at Mosman, where you and I met a number of years back with Keith Reedy's group, and I'm rejoining Keith's group actually at the Warringah Library.
Yep.
But given that I've been away from this discussion area for quite some time, what do you think are the most practical uses of AI today in your mind for investors?
Yeah, I think there's levels to the game, I suppose, and so you really do need to start off with playing with the tool. I think that's the first step, is to actually understand what the tool requires of you. I think so. A lot of people that I've spoken to that have had, I guess, negative experiences using AI, when they've told me how they've gone about it, it's kind of more clear to me why they've probably had a negative experience, because they have just asked a very vague question. And of course, if you ask a vague question, you're probably going to get a vague answer. And so, as people have started to play with it and started to sort of understand the logic, I think, behind it, they're realizing primarily that it is a research partner. It is a way to, distill information, to draw conclusions. But again, the AI is your partner. It's your assistant, and I think where people do get disappointed with AI is when they try and hand over all of the control to the AI and expect it to give them the answers and tell them what to do. That's not what AI is designed to do. And if you do that, then you will be disappointed. But if you use it as a research assistant, you can get through a tremendous amount of work. And you can also do a lot of, learning with it as well. So you can question your own beliefs and your own conclusions and see if these things really do matter in terms of, the market and what makes things go up and down, right? So that's what I'm finding, is a lot of them are just, discovering a lot more about the market, about the rules of the market, and about, their own beliefs and whether they actually hold water when they do ask the AI to, dig deeper.
I guess it reminds me of an old adage. I'm old enough to remember when calculators were first introduced into school classrooms. And our maths teacher back at the day, I still remember, I went to Catholic school, and he sat there very wisely and very sagely said, G-I-G-O. And we sat there, G-I-G-O, what's that? And garbage in, garbage out. And funnily enough, 50, 60 years later, that rule really hasn't changed, has it?
No, it hasn't. And I mean, it's funny that you use that analogy, because I've used the calculator analogy a lot as well, because, people are kind of, one sort of message that I've heard from some members is that they're a bit skeptical about AI and how, it's going to make the human race, I guess, less intelligent, because now we're just going to outsource all of our decisions to AI and all of our hard work. And I guess it's the same as a calculator. There are some people that never bothered to work out how to actually do addition and multiplication and just use the calculator. And so those people, probably won't, develop so well in their mathematics abilities. And it will be the same with AI. There'll be people that will use it just, to do everything for them and reduce the amount of thinking required. But there'll be plenty of others that will use it and use it to elevate their intelligence and elevate their ability to ask, intelligent questions and to really get to the root cause of problems and to find better solutions. So, like anything, there's always two sides to these things.
Yeah, again, it makes me smile, because when you become sucked into, and I'm going to again use the very basic analogy of a calculator, you get sucked into the notion the calculator spits out an answer and it's always right. The very same maths teacher back in the day said to us, always do a quick mental arithmetic check.
Yep.
And even, he said to me, again, really sage words. He said, you don't have to get the answer exactly correct. But if you, for example, plug in 60 times 60, you know that the answer should be 360, or should it have an extra zero? And
That's
60
right.
times 6, so you sit there, oh, hang on. No, there should be actually 4. And so just by quickly doing that mental arithmetic, and you're absolutely right, you don't stop thinking just because AI is there. And again, some really sage things that basic rules still apply. So
100%, 100%.
So I guess, can you give a simple example of how an investor might use AI before an annual general meeting, for example, or after a company has issued its results?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of the most powerful ways I think that, certainly people that are new to AI can start to get results. And so I always said very early on to people that I spoke to in my investor groups, AI works a lot better if you can give it the documents first, rather than just saying, tell me about, how XYZ company is going. If you can take the annual report from that company and upload it to the AI and then say, now look at this report, please tell me, and then give me some insights. Ask me, tell me about, the pay for directors, and tell me about, all the various different metrics. But also the other thing that you can do with AI, which is one of the most powerful things, is you can say to it, I've just uploaded this annual report. What would be some good questions for me to ask you to interrogate this report? So that's what I learned very early with AI, was that, the limit to my abilities using AI was the questions that I was able to come up with. And so I spent such a long time asking the AI, what questions should I be asking you? What questions do other people ask you? And that's how I learned to ask better questions of AI.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pick up on that. We're just about at halftime. You're here on Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly show about finance, money, and investing. I'm here with Nathan Hood, who is the services manager, members manager, with the Australian Shareholders Association. And we've had his CEO, Rachel Waterhouse, on the show before. We're talking today about AI. We are going to take a very short break and be back with you in just a moment. Hi, and thank you for listening to Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly radio program about finance, money, and investing on Radio Northern Beaches and nationally on the Community Radio Network around Australia. The views, comments, and opinions aired during our program should not be construed or viewed as financial advice. Any commentary is general advice only and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. You should consider whether the advice is suitable for you and your personal circumstances. If in doubt, you should contact an authorised licensed financial planner. We welcome questions and feedback, and you can get in touch with us via our blog, social media channels, or email. Please search for Dollars and Making Sense in your favourite podcast platform, or check out our blog at otgcapital.com.au/blog. Hi, and welcome back to Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly show about finance, money, and investing. I'm your host, Ray Treverson. I'm really pleased to have at the microphone and camera this week, for the first time, Nathan Hood, who is the Member Services Manager for the Australian Shareholders Association. I got it wrong again. I know I'm going to get your title right sooner or later. Anyways, doesn't matter. Nathan's with the ASA, and I'm really pleased that he's coming on because he knows a lot about using AI, artificial intelligence, in investing. And I guess from a day-to-day thing, one of the things that I derived as a freebie from the New South Wales state government, they provide a lot of training for people that run small businesses, and they provided an AI workshop free of charge, which I did. And I learned this thing called prompt engineering. Now, when I read it, I thought, what the heck does that mean? And so I did a bit of research, and prompt engineering is exactly what you were talking about before we went to our little break. It's about how to ask the right questions. And I think before people dive right into AI, there's a lot to be gained from understanding prompt engineering, isn't there?
Yes and no. I think it's one of the worst terms that has come out of AI in a lot of ways. I think it's made AI appear to be more difficult to use than it really is. And
well, I think it allows consultants to charge for their consulting time, don't you think?
100%. So, but all prompt engineering is basically saying, look, how can you ask better questions? Okay, how can you ask better questions of the AI? And like I alluded to in my last response, the best way to learn the best questions to ask AI is to ask it. Okay, you can learn together. You can learn from the AI, ask it what questions, how it likes questions answered. But to put it in more simple terms, to talk about prompt engineering, what it is, it's just about giving more context. Okay, so let me give you an example. So let's say I'm interested in the company on the stock exchange, CSL. Okay, so I say to, so the first level of a question would be, is CSL a good company? All right, so this is something where people would start. And you're going to get an answer, and the problem is you've already kind of led the AI into the answer by using the word good. Is it good? So you're already sort of implying something there. You're much better off trying to just be neutral in what you're asking of the AI. So a better question would be just, can you tell me a bit about this company? You're not trying to, lead it into saying it's positive or it's negative. The next step, is to say, okay, well, let's have some more context there. So are you an investor? Are you a trader? Are you, so then you give it more context. As a share investor, I'm looking at this company, CSL. I like to hold shares for 5 years or longer. The more context you give it, the better you'll get the answer, which, kind of seems obvious, but that's what prompt engineering is now. It's just taking it, adding a few more layers to the question to get ultimately a better response.
I think one of the things that people need to also understand is that AI is not a mind reader. It can't read your mind. And so this is where, again, the GIGO routine comes back. I mean, people sometimes try or maybe they tend to assume far too much. And so, and maybe that's part of the frustration when people feel disappointed. They're expecting this. Sometimes I use the term sentience or intelligence that goes beyond, I think, just that base level. Would you agree with that basic comment?
You've got to remember, you're still talking to a computer. You're not talking to a person, okay? And so, there is a lot of hype around AI. And as I said, I do think it's justified, but it's not hype to the point where you can just, ask it the most, nondescript kind of question and expect to get the most groundbreaking response. But if you do construct structured questions with good context, then you will get better responses from the AI. And so, and a lot of the time now, it sounds a bit sort of naff, I suppose, but when people are coming up to me now and saying, oh, I used AI and it hallucinated and this and that, I kind of tend to say that's user error. Yeah. They don't necessarily want to hear that, but that's really where it's at now. Like, the hallucinations have been not completely eliminated, of course, but they're so less frequent. And I use AI on a daily basis. I probably use it for multiple hours a day. And the amount of this, sort of these false answers is just becoming almost non-existent for me.
And I guess that leads to a very good next question then, verification. When people are using when investors are using, AI to do this research and to do a workflow to say, for example, to understand whether to invest in a company like CSL or not, what are the kind of steps that they should be taking, I guess, in their analysis to verify what they're getting back at them is actually real and can be relied upon?
Yeah, so this gets back to my point earlier, right? That AI is your assistant, okay? You're still the boss. If you're going to hand over some work, ultimately, it's your name that's attached to it. If you're going to make an investment, it's your decision to make the investment. It's not the AI's, okay? But one of the things that I like to do, or what I like to do very early on, is I would ask the AI, give me 5 bullish points about this company and give me 5, bearish points about this company. I'd really get the AI to, highlight the positives and the negatives, and then I'd almost get the AI to debate those things with itself, right? So I think that's one way that you can really sort of get more meaningful information, is you don't always focus on the upside. If anything, you could probably, skew more to focusing on the negative side of things, and you'll find that's a safer outcome, because you will eventually come across companies where it's quite obvious that the negatives are nowhere near to the same level as the positives in an investment, situation. And they're obviously the ones that you want to, probably look closer at investing in.
I guess one of the things that springs to mind as you were talking then is that you are posing a question to an LLM, a large language model that has scoured the internet and scraped data from a whole range of different places. Aren't we simply engaging in computer groupthink?
Yeah, well, that's one argument that, kind of is at the moment sort of going around, that eventually, there'll be sort of no edge in investing because we'll all kind of come to the same conclusions because we'll all be using our AIs to give us the answers, and all the AIs will be coming to exactly the same conclusions. That may or may not happen, but I think we're still a very, very long way away from that at this time. So, but yeah, it certainly is a risk. And but again, that's where I guess you can develop your own systems and your own original thought. And one of the things about AI that I've quickly learned is that it's been a great tool for me to test my own theories about the market and to see if they actually hold water. And so very quickly I've been able to say, well, no, I don't look at the markets this way anymore, because I realized that I was putting way too much weight into this theory when it's clear to me that this theory over here that I've now explored in depth with AI is a much stronger theory and a much stronger way to approach the markets, I suppose. So yeah.
Sure. So in your mind, what are the biggest traps when AI sounds confident but could be wrong or out of date? How do you check?
Yeah, of course. So the thing is, if you get a response from AI and it's correct, and you get a response from AI and it's incorrect, it's almost impossible to tell the difference between the confidence levels of the AI. It will just come out saying, of course, this is blah 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 blah, and of course it can be wrong. And so that's where for instance, it's, as I said before, it's good to give the documents that you want to say analyze to the AI yourself, so then you can quickly go and cross-reference some of the responses from the AI with those documents, just to check off and make sure that that it hasn't gone down the wrong path. But also, if you keep it restricted to the documents that you've given it, well then it isn't going off and scouring the internet, and it isn't going and picking up maybe something in some chat room or something which is completely off the mark. So that's one of the main guidelines, I think, is to give it the documents and tell it to just stick to using those documents. But then also, if you do let it go off into the internet, which is fine, but you do suspect there's any issues, you can query the AI to say, well, can you tell me what sources you use for this? I want to go and have a look at them myself. So yeah, you can definitely go and find verification for the answers.
And given that you are uploading information to an AI engine, I guess the thing that is front of mind then, because I've often spoken to investor groups and industry bodies about cybersecurity, privacy and security, what are your comments in that space?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this stage, you still want to be ultra cautious with what information you give to AI. So I wouldn't be giving it any personal information. I wouldn't be giving it, anything that I would want to give anybody that I didn't know, really. So, but again, you can get a lot done without having to disclose, too much personal information. There's different AIs that have different security. For instance, there's one called Claude that's quite well known, and I believe that if you set your settings correctly, that it will discard any information that you've uploaded every 30 days. It won't keep anything beyond 30 days. So that's one example. So again, these are huge businesses. You've come through the AI boom. You've seen how this game sort of goes. It's absolutely not in anybody's interest to have a data leak. Okay, so if you've got somebody like Claude, or you've got somebody like ChatGPT, and suddenly they find out that somebody's bank details has been published, and the only way it was from AI, that's the end of that. Everybody will move on to another LLM, and that'll be the end of ChatGPT. So I understand that it's a risk, and I'm very cautious around it, but I also understand that it's probably a low probability that that my data would be in danger, even if I was to share it, provided I've got my settings correctly set in my large language model. Yeah.
I guess AI versus advice. I mean, one of the big things when people listen to our show, we have a disclaimer in the middle. We don't give out personal advice. I guess we should really pay heed to the same thing around AI.
100%. 100%. Again, it's your assistant. You're the boss. It's not the boss. Do not hand over your decision making to the AI, but certainly use it to help you make better decisions.
Yeah, yeah. I guess one of the things that I always like to do with this show, particularly with people that know a lot more about this stuff than I do, I like to leave our audience with a key takeaway. And I guess if listeners remember only one rule about using AI for investing in shares, what do you think it should be?
Look, I think the main thing is, be curious for a start, because, as much as I know and as much as the next person knows, there's still so much that we don't know. This is an incredible tool, and it is really limited by, the ability for us to ask the right questions. And so, use your AI, get it to, ask it questions, ask it the questions that you should be asking, and just question everything. I think to me, AI is really about questions. It's really, that's what stands out to me, is that it's making me want to be better at asking questions. And it's just, and the way that I'm getting better at asking questions is interrogating it around questions, and then the results come from those questions.
Keep using it, I guess, and practice.
100%, yeah.
Okay, so look, Nathan, I look forward to seeing you out and about in the Australian Shareholders Association. Ladies and gents, if you're not in capital city areas, don't worry. The ASA has virtual meetings as well. There's a lot of really good stuff on their website. I am a member, so I am going to do a bit of a plug for the ASA, but it is a not-for-profit. It is there to help shareholders out. There are just so many really, really good resources at the ASA. Nathan, I'd like to thank you so kindly for coming on the show. It's been really, really useful.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. I really enjoyed it. And any other time you want me to come back, I'd love to.
Sounds great. Thanks very much for being on Dollars and Making Sense.
Thank you.